And now we will move out to from the systems view out to the county view, political even, with our final speaker, Molly Rysman. Has a Master's of Urban and Regional Planning from UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs, and she is Housing and Homeless Deputy for the Office of Los Angeles County Supervisor Sheila Kuehl, my neighbor, and also a UCLA alum. Thank you, Molly.
Thank you. I am honored to be here. We do have deep ties in our office to UCLA, and we have deep ties to UCLA in the work we're doing on homelessness. UCLA is involved in a lot of the work we're doing in some really amazing ways, helping us understand the data and helping us look at things in a new way, which is really exciting. So I wanted to start, I will mostly be talking about Measure H and the county's homeless initiative and what we do with all this information and how we're responding in LA County. But I wanted to put it in some context because as we heard from Marcia, this isn't just about homelessness. Folks who experience homelessness have touched many systems before they end up homeless, whether it's child welfare or criminal justice or our hospitals or our public social services. They've often touched a lot of systems, and there's a lot of work the county is doing that isn't specifically about homelessness, but I think actually has huge ramifications for what happens with homelessness in LA. So obviously homelessness is one of our very important strategic priorities. We focus both on how we respond to homelessness, but the county's role as well as of not letting people who are touching our institutions fall into homelessness, trying to reduce that inflow from our systems, whether it's the jail or child welfare. So a lot of work happening on both of those ends. Incredible focus on criminal justice reform in the county right now. Not to say that we're completely succeeding in ending mass incarceration. That's going to take a little time. But a big focus on how do we not have jail be the door that never says no, which is really what jail is today and why so many people end up there who really shouldn't be there, who aren't violent, who are there because they're disabled. So a lot of work happening in criminal justice reform. There's also a lot of work in the county to promote wellness and to integrate our health systems. We created a health agency a few years ago, really again trying to make sure that when people come to the county, they don't have to go to 3 different places to get their substance use disorder treatment, their mental health treatment, their primary health care, really trying to promote wellness in a more holistic way, which also has huge implications around homelessness. And Marcia did make me responsible for the affordable housing crisis and how we're going to solve it. So we do have a big focus on affordable housing. Ultimately, we have a lot of work to do around supply. We can provide services and we can provide subsidies to help people stabilize, but we need places for them to go, and our housing crisis is our biggest challenge. The county has a big emphasis on dramatically increasing what we're doing on affordable housing, both building new housing, but there's also a ton of work to do around preservation. We have a lot of infrastructure, whether it's our public housing or old affordable housing with expiring covenants or naturally occurring affordable housing, our rent stabilized units. There's all these different kinds of housing that if we can preserve those and not lose those critical resources, we can also do a lot to address the housing crisis. So Marcia provided some context, and I just also like to sort of give a little disclaimer before I talk about our results, which is that this is a crisis that was 40 years in the making. There's been incredible disinvestment for many, many decades, and you don't reverse that overnight. I think there's some folks who've said the city passed Proposition HHH and the county passed Measure H. Why do I see a homeless person on my corner? This is not the kind of crisis that there's a magic bullet solution for. It's going to take time. The other piece is that homelessness is very traumatic for people who experience it, and it just takes time. We solve homelessness one person at a time, one person getting a home. Each person that experiences that, that's how we end homelessness, but that just takes time. People's lives are very messy. They've experienced a lot of trauma before they become homeless, and it just takes a lot of time. And as Marina said so eloquently, we have thousands and thousands of people falling into homelessness, which is an incredible challenge. This is actually some of the research that the California Policy Lab here at UCLA is doing that I'm most excited about, is really helping us understand our inflow into homelessness, and how to address that inflow and how to understand what's happening to folks. The latest research from the California Policy Lab is that 55,000 people became homeless last year. So that's what we're up against. So many challenges, it's going to take time, but we are making some results. So Measure H was passed in March 2017. The money started flowing in July 2017. So we have 18 months of results because we measure results by quarter. So we don't have the quarter we're in right now yet. We have through December 31st data. So in the first 18 months of Measure H, we were able to get a lot of people into interim housing. As Marina said, huge push to increase interim housing. You're going to see a lot more interim housing becoming available, whether it's through the Mayor's Abridged Home Initiative or through county efforts. Often we're partnering together, the city and the county, to bring on new interim housing. But just in those first 18 months, there were over 23,000 people who accessed interim housing funded by Measure H. Ultimately, what really solves homelessness is a home. And so the number we're most interested in is how many people get permanent housing. So over 11,000 people in those first 18 months got homes that were funded in some part by Measure H. Many other people got off the streets. That's just what Measure H touched, is homes for 11,616 people. So that is an improvement over where we were before. Like I said, there's housing paid for by other government funding sources. There's many people who self-resolve their homelessness, but this is just what we touched with Measure H. So Measure H, it was a quarter-cent sales tax. Our budget for last year, or the fiscal year we're in right now, was $402 million. That's actually more than we'll bring in. That's because we had some one-time savings from the first year. We were ramping up services, and so we couldn't spend all the money in the first year, and so some of it rolled over. This just gives you a sense of the major buckets. There are 51 homeless initiative strategies. I am not going to bore you with 51 strategies. But this is just to give you a sense of the really sort of big buckets of what we're doing. 17 million for prevention, 30 million for outreach, 49 million for supportive housing, 73 million for rapid rehousing, and 120 million dedicated to interim housing. You saw the statistics about 3/4 of our homeless population being unsheltered. We really want to change that because of what it does to people to be unsheltered. People are literally losing their lives when they're sleeping outside, and so we really want to change that dynamic. Like I said, we're deeply committed to permanent housing. We're just trying to deal with that number in a very big way in this particular year. And there's also part of the reason these numbers are what they are is because we're often leveraging other funding sources for some of these pots as well. I want to talk a little bit about our personal priorities in Supervisor Kuehl's office and some of the things that we've been focused on, which is really about the upstream issues. We're deeply involved in Measure H, spend a lot of time with my friends at LAHSA, but we also want to think about these bigger issues and how we address them. So in our first year and since, we've been very focused on funding housing construction and preservation, done a lot of work to dramatically increase the county's investment in affordable housing. We're very focused on how do we help people afford to stay in their homes. You heard about seniors being the fastest growing population of people experiencing homelessness. How do we stop that? How do we help people have rents that are affordable? We are big supporters and believers in rent stabilization. The city has had rent stabilization for many years. The county had no rent stabilization. We adopted an interim rent stabilization ordinance this fall. It was a very, very difficult political battle. It was not an easy thing to do, but we believed really strongly that we have to keep rents affordable for people so that they can stay in their homes. And if you don't know this already, rent-stabilized units are our largest stock of affordable housing. We can build housing, we can preserve housing, we can do all those things, but it's rent-stabilized units that are actually the biggest stock. So it's really important. Doing a lot of work around fair housing protections. I'm so focused on production, but no, we're doing fair housing protections. We have not talked a lot about structural racism, which is a huge driver into homelessness. We see horrible racial disparities in homelessness. Homelessness far disproportionately impacts African Americans versus other groups. And that has to do with our legacy of structural racism in this country and the way structural racism works today. One of the places we've been really focused on trying to address that is in the housing market and housing discrimination, and trying to affirmatively further fair housing in Los Angeles County. So it's been one of our big efforts this year. Our current big effort is eviction defense. You may have also heard that 90% of people who are facing an eviction do not have legal representation. Well, 90% of landlords do. You can imagine how those cases end up when one party has a lawyer and the other does not. So increasing legal representation in court's really important. And then, like I said, we're also in our office very focused on the other systems. What can we do around the foster care system, the child welfare system, our jails, to make sure people have access to stable homes, particularly coming out of those two systems, which are our two biggest drivers, has been a big focus of our office. One of the things I just wanted to mention, we are trying to figure out innovative ways to approach the housing crisis in Los Angeles. It is very challenging, but we did just announce the winners of our Housing Innovation Challenge. We provided $4.5 million for a variety of solutions that are looking at doing something different than affordable housing or supportive housing, but that can also increase our affordable housing stock. So bungalow courts, accessory dwelling units. There's a variety of modular housing or prefab that got awarded funding as we try and figure out what are the ways to bring housing online faster, cheaper. And so there's the websites here if anyone wants to learn more about that. I just want to end with some of the resources because there's a lot of information, and I'm giving you the 10,000 foot view of this. There's a great website on our homeless initiative. We are very outcome focused, so our Measure H dashboard is where we provide all of the numbers about what we're achieving, and our outcomes are on that Measure H dashboard. You heard about the homeless outreach portal, which was great. I highly encourage folks to use it. It's a big deal in LA County that we now have a universal way for people to request outreach teams. We get a lot of people actually requesting outreach teams for themselves through that portal. So it's a great way to get access to the services. Measure H is a gigantic investment and it's created thousands of jobs. So for all those UCLA graduates who need jobs, we have the Jobs Combating Homelessness website so that you can see where the openings are. There were 1,000 jobs created in the first year of Measure H. So there is a lot of opportunity to work in this field, and this is a centralized way. And lastly, I wanted to end with everyone in. You also heard about the challenges we are facing in terms of siting supportive housing and our bridge housing. It's really important. What we've learned is that there's a silent majority in Los Angeles that supports our efforts to build housing, but they don't show up at public meetings or neighborhood council meetings. And there's this really vocal minority who seems to have endless time to show up at every single meeting and tell city council and others how terrible everything we're trying to do is. So it's really important that folks do engage, and Everyone In is an amazing campaign by the United Way, really focused on mobilizing that silent majority and helping make it easier for people to know where to show up in your community to tell people you care about solutions to homelessness and how to support supportive housing that's being proposed in your community or bridge housing that's being proposed in your community. It's been a game changer. I know Venice and Sherman Oaks and Koreatown got a lot of press attention. There has been twice as many places where we've succeeded in citing things. The LA Times doesn't cover the story when we have a good community meeting where we get support. You only see the meetings with people out there with signs. But everyone in has actually changed the dynamic in LA in really amazing ways. And we're actually seeing a lot of community support for our efforts, and it's actually getting a lot built. So it's an amazing way for anyone to participate in these efforts and actually have a very big impact. So I will end there, and I look forward to questions.